Hey everybody, this is Bendanta here, and today I want to talk about the direct aftermath of the incident and things that have helped me physically and mentally since then. Apologies for the bad camera quality. Unfortunately, I was a bit of a derp and forgot our good camera at our family's place. So now we're using the webcam that I would normally record when I'm doing game stuff, but that's for a tiny little picture, so it doesn't really matter. But now, hopefully next time I will have the camera back again and be able to do this properly. And warning, what I'm going to talk about might be a little bit uncomfortable for some. I will be talking about stuff directly after the incident when I was in hospital and so on. It was a graphic time. I'm going to try not to be too graphic in my descriptions, but it just in case anybody is bothered by it. So the first thing I want to talk about is more on the practical side. Starting right after the incident, something that's important to note. The body is an amazing thing. It has amazing ways of dealing with trauma, of dealing with damage, more so than one would realize, seeing as we don't go through things like this every day. The moment it happened, I was very fortunate in that the way in which it happened basically it crushed the arteries and veins that would have bled. So I did not have very significant bleeding. There was some, but it wasn't very much. But immediately when it happened, as soon as I realized what had happened, I realized that I didn't feel any pain. And I realized that my body was going into shock. When your body goes into shock, it pulls all the blood away from the extremities. It shuts down a bunch of signals. It tries to just get the essential stuff, keep the essential stuff going. It's a basic survival mode. Having dealt with medical things in the past with myself and other people, I realized that this was what was happening. I realized that this was the moment in which I could do something. For the next little while, I would be pain-free, I would be lucid, I would be aware of my surroundings. After that, you can't guarantee what's going to happen, how your body's going to react from there. So it's important to take that time to do what needs to be done. So in our case, I immediately started moving towards where our cars were so we could get in the car and go to the hospital. I ripped off my shirt. Well, pulled it off. I'm not freaking Hulk. I took off my shirt and gave it to my father-in-law so he could tie a tourniquet on my arm. He looked and he realized I was actually not really bleeding and that it would be better to just leave it. You don't want to do more damage by taking steps when they're not necessary. That's very much, that depends on your first aid knowledge and training. My father-in-law's had a lot of experience. He used to work in the mines and he's had a lot of experience with things like this. He has some idea of what to do. So we took that time to get to the car. By the time we got to the hospital, I was starting to go into severe pain. So if we had waited longer, if I had, panicked when it happened or whatever, that wouldn't have helped. I tried on the ride to the hospital to not look at my hand too much. The old thing that happens when you fall down, you scrape your leg and it doesn't hurt, and then you look at it and you see the cut or the scrape or whatever, and then it suddenly starts to hurt. I figured this isn't the time for me to be checking my hand out too much. This isn't the time for me to be looking into that. Right now I need to focus on what needs to be done. I also didn't let my thoughts stray into sad territory or future territory of well, how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do? It sucks that I've lost the hand. Because while that's all true and all necessary to think about, that wasn't the moment. At that moment, that was the time to just take the next step, make sure that, you survive the whole incident. If you survive, you can do whatever you want afterwards. Right then and there, you need to take care of the now. The second practical thing that I can say, and here I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm just speaking from my experience and from what I was told by the doctors and nurses and what I was told by other people who did research on the subject. When I was admitted to the hospital near where I live, I went first to one and then got transferred to another. When I was admitted to that hospital, or rather taken into the emergency room, admittance is when you go into the ward itself. When I was taken into the emergency room, the nurses immediately gave me morphine, and then one of the doctors came and saw me, and he prescribed Tramadol. He told them they need to give me Tramadol every so often. I'm not sure what's in Tramadol, but when one of the nurses came, she looked at me, she looked at my wound, she looked at the prescription, she said, no, she's not giving me that, she's giving me morphine. That's what I need right now. I wasn't going to argue because I know morphine is just one of the strongest painkillers, and I have previously had issues when I went to have my wisdom teeth extracted. It took a very long time for them to put me under. When I've had pain or headaches or whatever, painkillers do almost nothing to me. My body just, for some reason, resists that. So I was quite happy with the morphine because the pain was pretty intense. I later found out that morphine is actually a very good thing to give, specifically for amputations. Now, what a lot of people suffer with, one of those sort of worst things from amputations, is phantom pains. You can feel as though your missing limbs are still there, and worse, you feel as though there's pain in the limb, and there's nothing you can do to really treat that directly, because there's no nerve there for you for the pain medication to get to. Now, in my case, the worst I've ever had was that it felt like somebody was pressing something sharp onto my nail. So I've really done fantastically well with this. Sometimes I can still sort of vaguely feel like if I do this with the muscles in this arm, it feels like my fingers are curling. And sometimes my finger will get, like my index finger specifically, will get a bit itchy, but it's incredibly minor compared to people who sometimes have debilitating pain. They can't get out of bed for a day because it feels like that leg is on fire or something like that, you know. I've found research that actually says that even for afterwards, like sometime after the amputation has happened, treating patients with morphine has a big effect on reducing phantom pain. The link to that research will be in the description. A friend of ours also did some research and told me that they say that morphine is actually very good to apply immediately. Now, I don't have a link to that. I will try and find some. My theory is that because morphine is an opioid, opioids damage your nervous system. Long-term morphine users, who like drug users, will eventually lose sensation in their fingers and in their feet and generally in their extremities, which starts to creep inwards. It can result in them actually getting burns or wounds that they're not aware of because they literally don't have feeling. So morphine kills your nervous system. It damages your nerves. And I think what that does in this particular case is it gets to a place where obviously there was a chunk torn out of my hand, and so there were a lot of damaged nerves there, but instead of those damaged nerves malfunctioning and sending wrong signals, they were basically killed off by the morphine. And if in the case of addicts, that can literally lead to them hurting themselves without realizing it, obviously that means there's no signal coming from that nerve. So those nerves were cut off. They were no longer sending any signals back. So for me, that was very helpful. And it might be something to mention to a doctor if you have something like that. Obviously, they will know better, but they might be able to find the research. It could be of use. On the other side of things is the mental side of things, which is at the very beginning, it's not so much of an issue. There's too much pain for you to worry about a lot of other stuff. But as time goes on, that becomes the major issue. Dealing with that is often way more difficult than dealing with the pain. Now, that's going to depend from person to person. For some people, things are easier just in general. For some people, things like this are more difficult. For me, I've lost family members in the past, close family members. And so that's given me a sense of perspective on things where for me, it's like, you know what, I have lost worse and I could have lost worse. Somebody else could have been in the accident. The way it happened could have been such that I lost an entire arm. It's actually happened to people. A person we know of lost his entire leg in almost the exact same circumstances. So it could have been worse. Reminding myself of that helps a lot. Right after the incident, I tried not to think about it too much. Like I said, I tried to steer my thoughts to what needed to be done right now. For some people, I would suggest maybe not looking at the wound too much because it looks really bad, obviously. Now, it looks fine. That's a bit glary, you can't really see. I mean, now, it obviously doesn't look normal, but it doesn't look so terrible. It doesn't look like something that your brain just can't comprehend. Right after the accident, for me, I was looking at it. I have no issue with wounds and that kind of thing. So I was looking at it. I had the nurses take pictures and send me that I actually still have on my phone. It was very interesting for me. It helps me to analyze, okay, this is what's missing, this is what's happening, but it's not going to work that way for everybody. For many people, I would say, don't look at it. Wait till afterwards when it looks better before you start, like, staring at it. So instead of looking at it when it looks bad and then later always thinking about that, you don't ever see that, and you see it when it looks good, and this is what you work with in your brain. You're never working back on that. Now, again, for me and for many other people, that's not a problem. The most important advice that I can possibly give, and it can be difficult to follow, but I cannot overstate the importance of trying, is to stay positive. I know that sounds, like something out of a freaking Disney movie. It's a consequence of just like, it's the kind of guy I am. I joke about things all the time. So right after it happened, I was making jokes. The first things I said when my family came to see me the first day in the emergency room was, my first step to becoming Adam Jensen is complete. As a gamer, I freaking love Deus Ex, and so that kind of thing, it helps me to think about it that way. I made jokes about everything. I was, friendly with the nurses. I smiled as much as I could. I was in a lot of pain. There were a lot of things. I'm a gamer, which means that I realized I'd have to figure out a new way to work with a mouse. I am a musician, which means I have to learn new ways to work with all three of the instruments that I play. Currently, effectively play one of them, which is the guitar, and I can't even really do that completely. But the piano and the cello, I can't really play them properly with my right hand at all. I can fiddle around is the best I can do. Despite all that, I keep reminding myself that I am working on a way to get there. I fully intend to recover my ability to play the piano. medical science and biological science has come very far, and there are prosthetics available. There are prosthetics I'm going to design. There are people working on possibly cloning your hands or giving you stem cells or DNA that can regrow your hand, like Deadpool style. They're working with those little lizards called axolotls that can regrow basically any part of their body. I think up to even half their brain or something like that. They want to try and figure out how to get that for people. Maybe I won't be the one to figure it out, but I'm going to keep working on it. And that's another thing that for me helps being a gamer, is that I like winning. And I'm not going to let a stupid machine beat me down. I'm not going to let my mistake win over me. This is my life, and I'm going to do what I want. And I think that knowing that, taking ownership of what is yours and wanting to carry on with it, I think is very important. I think that people are a lot stronger than what they would think of themselves. And physically and mentally, we're capable of handling a lot more than what we would generally assume. That's really my advice. On the physical side, stay calm, stay collected, find out what the best drugs are. Keep yourself educated at all times on what's happening. I wasn't able to do much in the hospital myself, but my family and friends were constantly looking up things and coming to tell me about it. And then I could discuss those things with the doctors. Obviously, the doctor knows best. I'm not going to try and second guess the doctor, but a doctor doesn't always have time to look up every single thing about every single case. And if I can make a suggestion, it could help. And then on the mental side, stay positive. No matter what, keep the jokes going, keep the smiles going. There's research that suggests that you can make yourself happy by pretending to be happy. Your brain knows that when you're happy, you smile. So if you smile, your brain thinks you're happy. It's basically fake it till you make it. There's going to be tough days. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be times when you're sad about it and you're going to think, why did this happen? But you can beat that. You can always beat that. So I hope this video has been helpful. Hope again next time there'll be better quality on the image. If you guys have any questions, anything you'd like to know, anything you'd like me to answer, post a comment. If you are a patron, your comments will obviously get priority. The topics you guys come up with are things I'd like to discuss. If I can help somebody with their questions, then I've already won something else out of this. Next time, I will hopefully be talking about the setup that I have. I just couldn't do that without the good camera. Later on, in another future video, I will be talking about other tools and like little helpful gadgets and what have you that I have that make the whole transition easier. If you like what I'm doing, drop me a comment, drop me a like, subscribe to my video, consider donating to my Patreon, and share the word. Thank you. Cheers.